Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Soul of a Fighter. This is a brand new MMA podcast brought to you from very special person, Cyrus Stark, G here from MMA Hype Watch, and also we're going to be bringing in another guest soon and later on this week. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is G. I am an introducer and special person at MMA Hype Watch, and I do most of their video broadcasting. I'm a Taekwondo brown belt, been studying boxing, martial arts, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, everything for a total of 10 years. And I'm going to have to say that MMA is a pretty big obsession of mine. And I love talking about it. I love the fighters. I love the whole entire atmosphere of it. And that is why I'm here today to tell you and talk to you MMA fans out there about this very beloved sport of ours. So let me pass this on to Chris and let him tell you about himself.
Hi, this is Cyrus Stark. I am an aspiring fighter. I train. I've been a fan since the very beginning, since 1993 of the sport, since UFC first showed up. I've been a fan of pretty much any professional MMA promotion, anywhere I could find it. My favorite, my personal favorite promotion ever was Strikeforce. But I mean, I love Pride, I love Shudo, I love Vale Tudo, and anything mixed martial arts. All the great kickboxing promotions like K1, Dream. I'm a huge fan of One Championship. Preferred it when they were called One Fighting Championship. But you know, like basically you're gonna have three hosts: Gerald, Roberto, and myself, Cyrus. And basically we're gonna be bringing you this this podcast. This podcast is all about MMA, the sport we all love, but it's also gonna be different than other MMA podcasts in the sense that it's going to be all about fighters. It's going to be as much about fighters as possible. We're going to be covering all the main topics, all the fight cards we can talk about, but all the news, anything we talk about, we're going to try and talk about it from a fighter's perspective. And we're going to, there will be no holds barred. We're not, I mean, you know, we're not mainstream media or even classical MMA media in the sense that we will talk about anything. We won't hesitate to give our opinions on things. So here we go.
All right, thank you. So the first topic that we're probably going to get into that we probably might need to talk about before everything going on in the MMA world is UFC 201. And I mean, like, what do you have to think? And what do you really have? What do you think about that? Give us your thoughts, Cyrus. Like, what do you think about that?
What do I think? I think a lot. Repeat the question. I'm sorry.
Like, what do you think about the whole UFC 201 scenario where just like the co-main and the main event was just completely blown out of the water by, you know, Carolina, and also by Tyron Woodley, just completely decimating anything that anybody could have thought about in terms of a fight?
Well, you know what? It's odd because I picked Lawler. I picked Lawler for the simple reason that, like, I mean, I have so much respect for the guy. I wouldn't like this. I went in with my eyes open. I knew Woodley could beat him. Woodley can knock anybody out. When you hit that hard, when you're that fast, when you're that athletic, the guy's a freak. But I expected Lawler to do it. I expected Lawler to basically, I expected the same Lawler that showed up against Ward. Okay, I'm not an anti-Woodley fan. I mean, I'm not anti-Woodley. I don't dislike Woodley. I'm not a fan of his per se, but I did not expect what I saw. So I was shocked. I mean, I was surprised, but I wasn't shocked. But more importantly, it's just champions are at risk, man. Champions are an endangered species, man. Like apart from DJ, Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson, and perhaps Joanna Violence, Jon Jacek. I think every single champion is at risk. I honestly believed Luke was going to be champion for a long time, and I still believe he will be. I think it's a GSP situation here. I honestly believe when he gets his hands back on that belt, he will be champion for a very long time. And I actually believed, and I still believe when he gets his belt back, because the way he lost it, of course, was because it's all his fault. But the reason he lost it was because he went in there to prove a point, but he went and he got caught. But every other champion is at risk. It's unbelievable. Same thing. It's funny. The Tyron Woodley Lawler result was for me personally was a lot like Eddie Alvarez taking on RDA, Rafael dos Anjos. Those who don't know what I'm talking about, in the sense that I wasn't shocked. I was not shocked because I've been a fan of Eddie Alvarez for a long time. I just didn't know what would happen. I was expecting a slugfest for 5 rounds, and he ended it so fast. But then again, like if anybody's followed Eddie Alvarez outside of the UFC, because his whole career was outside the UFC, you just know he's one heck of a fighter, and he's as tough and dangerous as they come. He's good everywhere. He's a complete martial artist, and he pulled it out. He pulled it out. I mean, I haven't seen Dos Anjos get hurt like that since he got knocked out by Jeremy Stevens.
Right.
But yeah, well, okay, I'm mixing everything up, but I think like right now, as of now, every champion is at risk. Stipe at heavyweight more than others because any heavyweight can knock out anybody if they hit so heavy. But I thought Robbie was going to lose his title to Stephen Thompson.
Yeah,
I did not believe he'd lose it to Tyron Woodley. I didn't think it was. I don't know. Like I didn't buy too much into the whole he hasn't fought in over a year. I just didn't think Woodley had the correct mindset, because Woodley, he's an amazing fighter. He's an amazing athlete. But the problem with him is mentally, between the ears, and mentally he cannot get out of his own way for a long time. And that's why I was one of the many people who thought he didn't deserve the title fight. Was his last fight was against Gastelum, and I didn't even think he won that fight. And no disrespect to Tyron Woodley. That performance against Robbie Lawler, you can't argue with it. Congratulations to the new champ. He's a great guy. But I honestly did not believe his last couple of results warranted a title fight. So,
yeah, and it's just really weird when you say that also, because I mean, a lot of people are saying that, oh, Tyron Woodley rubs them wrong, and I mean, it's pretty much true. I mean, you don't ask for a title fight just because somebody misses weight. That's definitely not the way that you show people that, hey, I'm a fighter. Hey, I'm a leader. Hey, I'm a professional, that I want to be the best. That just shows that you're going to do whatever it takes to basically get the belt, not actually fight people that actually are in your way to get that belt, to prove to everybody you're the best. And that's just one of the things where it's very noticeable, and that's why even as soon as he came in, he hadn't even said that he just wanted the big money fights first. He came in and people were just like, oh no, Tyron Woodley is here. Which is, it speaks for itself.
Yep, exactly. No, the thing is, like, he I don't know if it's warranted. I think he's developed a bit of a reputation as a head case. And I don't, in a way, like, as opposed to Vitor, who is a complete head case, and I love Vitor. He's one of my favorite fighters ever, but he is a nut job. He's completely insane. But, like, some of his arguments. But Woodley is, when he wants something, in a sense, I really respect that, because he does not give a fuck what people think.
Right.
Yet there will be swearing on this podcast, so just be warned. But what I'm saying is, like, I admire the fact that he did not care what people thought. He didn't care what, like, Matt Brown, what anybody said, what the fans said. To be fair as well, he didn't ask for that title shot. I mean, after that, he asked, but he got it from Dana.
Right.
And the way he played that game was brilliant, because Dana, in all his glory, as he usually does, he promised him a title fight and then basically started trying to pull it away from him right after he said it. But he did say, Tyron Woodley showed up like a pro. I'm giving him the title fight. He will fight for the title. Johnny Big Rig, or Fat Rig, as some people call him, Hendricks is now a middleweight, and Tyron gets the next title shot after Condit and Lawler are done. So basically, he took that and he sat on it, and he had the balls to bet on himself, and he did, and he got there. And you know what? No disrespect, I really, like, basically, it's like he didn't blink. He played, you know, it's like playing a game of poker. He bet, and he didn't blink. So good for him, and now he's the champion. The only thing is, I don't know. He's a very intelligent guy, so I wouldn't put it past him. Like that whole call out of other guys.
Right.
It could also be like he's the champ, so he's allowed to demand things now. It could also kind of be him trolling. Like he realizes. I mean, he realized two things. Like before, he realized that the squeaky wheel gets the grease or gets the oil or whatever. He gets what he wants by demanding, and it worked. Now he might just be making noise. He might be one of the few fighters, which is something I'd like to talk about later, who understands it doesn't matter whether you're loved or hated. What's important is that you make people react to whatever you say or whatever you do. And if he's realized that good for him. Tyron Woodley is going to be in the money, because if they hate him, if people show up to hate on him, he will be getting paid. And that's what fighters need to realize. So if that's what this is, I applaud him and I wish him nothing but luck, because I've been waiting for especially MMA fighters to understand that, because they need money more than anybody else. But there's very few boxers who realize that. There's more boxers than MMA fighters who've gotten that. But that is one of the most important things anybody can learn. Frickin' Floyd was an example to everybody. He became one of the most hated men in the world, and the man has made more money than any other fighter in history. So good. So, like, you know, listen and learn. Like, no, I mean, come on. Like, no, I mean, he's got every record. I mean, he even beats Jordan. Like, I'm talking about earnings in one night, in 1 year, just for, like, getting paid, his pay, he holds the record. And that's well, not my hate. I don't hate on him. But anybody who hates on him, basically, congratulations, you made Floyd a billionaire. So if that's what Woodley's doing, I applaud him. But on the other hand, maybe he's not doing that. Maybe he's just trying to get paid. And you know what? I don't agree completely, but at the same time, I, as a Diaz fan or a GSP fan, I would love to see that fight. I know it's completely unfair on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and I'm a huge fan of his too. And I hope they figure out a way. I hope they figure out something so he doesn't get screwed, because he has earned that title fight like nobody else has.
He really has. And the funny thing is, I really don't think that they're going to give it to him, even though he really deserves it, even though he has command of the spotlight right now. It just seems like the UFC in this, I guess, turnstile period where they're like turning things over, and then new companies like, hey, we need to come in, make a statement, make some money. It's kind of like, hey, everybody wants to see all these big money fights. Look at all the profits it's been bringing in. Why should we stray away from the formula that has been working for the last year, that has made the most profits than in most points of the UFC's history?
Yeah, but for all their brilliance, they still make mistakes. Everybody still makes mistakes. And one thing that I'm very interested in seeing, like, remember, Gerald, we were talking, I think, this last night, and we were saying it would have been great if we'd had just an inkling of where IMG and WME were going with the UFC, like what their plans were.
Yeah.
Because as successful as the Fertitas and Zuffa were, and I mean, I can't argue with their success. What they did is brilliant. I mean, $2 million to $4 billion. That's I had my hat. I tip my hat to them. That's got to be one of the greatest success stories ever. But what I'm trying to say here is they ran it like they ran it like a mom and pop company or a mom and pop store in the sense that they kept it small. I know it sounds really weird when I say it's small, but you never had more than 3 superstars per era, never more. And there could have been plenty more because there's so many amazing, colorful characters. I mean, like look at just now, right now, there's so many potential stars, but they always kept people back. And I honestly believe that, I mean, if I can see it, I'm sure they can see it. I'm sure they always picked just 3 that they would really push because they didn't want it to get out of hand. They didn't want to have too many superstars on their hands.
Right.
I honestly believe that.
Too many superstars equals too much money going out of their pockets.
Well, too much money out of their pockets, or just not enough control. Like they have to control. Like if like let's say, I mean, Diaz brothers have been superstars from the get-go. They have. They always have. But there was a reason why they kept Nate down. Nick, they tried to keep down, that he was just too big. He was too much, he was already a superstar from his days in, well, you name it, Pride, WEC, Elite XC. I mean, he was the perennial welterweight champion, the Strikeforce welterweight champion. So he was already a star. He was already a draw. There was no question about it. So they had to deal with him, but they never promoted him properly. And they completely, it's not even failed to promote Nate. They actually, it was almost like they tried
like
to.
Like they didn't want
to
be his brother.
It was almost like they were trying to ruin his career, like destroy his career at one point. Like, when you hear Dana saying that he doesn't move the needle, and Dana saying, "Oh yeah, sit out the rest of your career," that no promoter would ever do that.
Right. So that's just one of the things that was just burning in the minds of MMA fans. It's just like, what is going on with all this? Tyron Woodley, UFC 201 and everything. But I mean, like, how do you feel about the belt? Because right now I just feel like, yeah, sure, everybody's like, oh, there's a UFC champion, so there's a UFC champion, but I'm just like, look how fast and look how much the UFC championship belts have turned over. It's almost like the UFC champion, the quality of the UFC champions are just not the same quality of the UFC champions from, say, 5 or 4, probably even 3 years ago, where it's like they're holding onto their belts, turning in these amazing performances, and it's like now it's like they turn over every couple of months. Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, okay, I feel my opinion on it is this is how I feel about it. Basically, I think everybody's gotten better. Training's gotten better. The training techniques have gotten better. The coaches are getting better. Everybody has access to video, to YouTube, to all sorts of stuff online. Then just everybody's raising their game. And that generation, like GSP and Anderson Silva, were the exception, not the rule. They were freaks, especially GSP, because Anderson, I know I'm going to get some hate for this, but Anderson did have a couple gimmies. In those 10, he had 2 or 3 gimmies. He fought a couple of middleweights or even welterweights, because Patrick Cote, the best I've ever seen of him is at welterweight.
Yeah.
He fought Damian Maia. He's never looked better since he's been a welterweight. And he fought a couple guys who just weren't up to scratch. Like by the time, I know for a fact, Chris Leben, when he fought for the title, I believe it was one of his title defenses.
Right.
He had been concussed. He was injured. So I'm not trying to put a dampener on his career. He had an amazing career, but GSP fought the best of the best. They were all elites, and there was no question those guys deserved their title shot. They were the best. They'd beaten everybody. I mean, look, just John Fitch. I think if you're going to make an argument for one, that maybe it wasn't quite ready to get there was Dan Hardy. But Dan Hardy was knocking fools out.
Right.
He was a powerful striker. I mean, for Christ's sakes, he beat Mike Swick. Mike Swick was one of the greatest to ever do it. He was, I mean, Swift. Swift. So, I mean, so basically, for one thing, these two are the greatest to ever do it, or two of the greatest to ever do it. And second, everybody's getting better. Remember, Joe Rogan always used to talk about this, and quite a few people used to talk about this. He was saying GSP was the first of his kind because he was so talented. He figured out how to mix everything together perfectly. That's what made him unbeatable, is the fact that you could bring in a guy that was gonna, like everybody thought John Fitch was gonna wrestle his ass off, but GSP was able to beat him up on the feet and control him on the ground because he mixed both disciplines. He mixed his jiu-jitsu, he mixed his striking perfectly, and you never knew what he was going to do. So he always had you off guard. Another one, so many people were convinced was going to beat GSP. Like that was one of his most dangerous opponents was Thiago Alves. Thiago Alves was frightening. And that's Thiago Alves at his best, at his freakish best. And again, like all the wrestlers couldn't get Thiago Alves down. GSP found the way. GSP, it's just like you can't. Like it doesn't matter how good your takedown defense is. If you don't know when it's coming, you can't get ready for it. It doesn't matter how quick you are. If he times you, and that's what he did.
Right, and faster than those guys too. Like way faster, it looked like.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. But GSP was the first of his kind in the sense that he makes everything perfectly, seamlessly, without any effort. He almost had no tells, to the point where like he'd go from one discipline to the other. But then Joe Rogan spoke of the next generation. He said the next generation are gonna be basically X-Men freaks, because they're gonna be training everything from the beginning. And I think this is what's happening right now. We are now in the era of the mixed martial artists. These guys, not just they've been training, that's all they've trained. They never trained one discipline. You're not seeing as many amateur champion wrestlers anymore. You're starting to see people coming in like Rose Namajunas, who only trains MMA, who trains MMA every day since she was a kid. The Rory McDonald. Okay, fine. The Wonder Boy is another one. The Wonder Boy is such a freak athlete. He took about 5 years to get here, but in 5 years, look what he does.
Right. Like crazy highlights.
Yeah, exactly. You started to see, or other ones, Valentina Shevchenko. Look what Valentina Shevchenko did. She's a striker. She's one of the greatest Muay Thai champions, female Muay Thai champions ever. And she can take Holly Holm down at will. She took Holly Holm down.
I think she took her down for fun.
Yeah, she took her down for fun and held her down a lot easier than Miesha Tate did. And Miesha Tate is an accomplished wrestler. So, enjoy that. And you know what? We're going to be enjoying some amazing MMA in the next few years, because we are now in the era of, the next level. That's what I honestly believe. But it's just okay, the Tyron Woodley Robbie Lawler one had a couple things going for it, which was wild card in the sense that Tyron Woodley and Lawler were teammates. So you're gonna learn some things. You're gonna know each other, and I think I have this feeling like Tyron Woodley knew. Well, okay, fine. It's all in hindsight. Hindsight is 20/20, as they say. But I have this feeling like Tyron Woodley learned more about Robbie Lawler than Lawler learned about him. If you just take their comments before the event, Lawler's, and it wasn't talking trash. Lawler was just saying it honestly. I know him. He's a teammate, but he's not a training partner. We might have rolled once or twice or sparred once or twice, but I don't consider him a training partner because I've barely seen him. And Woodley was saying Woodley's comments were similar, but he seemed to be a lot more clued up, like as far as like Robbie in the gym.
Right.
I think basically Robbie's the guy. Robbie's been the guy even before, you know. I mean, Robbie's been around, so everybody knows Robbie. And Robbie was the guy at American Top Team. So of course everybody's going to be watching him. So that's interesting as well.
And
yeah, that's
here's one thing I just noticed that's interesting about what you said. Lawler seems pretty dismissive about almost everybody that he fights and everything. He's like, oh, you know, I'm going to fight them. You know, I don't think they have anything that could basically challenge me, or I've seen it all. I'm a veteran. I've seen it all. And then it's like Tyron Woodley comes. He's like, I'm not worried about Tyron Woodley. And the next thing you know, Tyron Woodley was, as you were saying, probably studying every little tiny bit. I mean, if you listen to a Tyron Woodley interview that he just did, he said, basically, we sat down and we thought about it. And somebody said, Robbie Lawler's face is really flat, and he cannot stand head-on flat punches directly to the face. Or something like that and everything like that. So they had to, he actually could stand punches to the face because he had a flat face, which is why they decided to time the hook instead.
That's really interesting. No, I never heard that.
Like I can go and find it. I'm pretty sure you could Google it and you'll find it.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. That's really interesting. That's excellent preparation. That's really going deep, and I love that kind of shit. Like I do it myself, like just to preview a fight, try and figure out who's gonna win, who's gonna lose, who has a weakness where. I'm really into that kind of stuff. Sometimes people will dismiss it, or sometimes it can sound like just like mumbo jumbo, but sometimes it actually works out. You know, sometimes it actually means something. And well, he made it look right. He made it look like he's a genius, and good for him. Super interesting. Huh?
I know. That's why I'm just like, that's one of those things. It's like you don't really think about until somebody actually says it. That Robbie Lawler is like, oh, hey, I'm a veteran. I can deal with it and everything. And he gets completely blasted out of the water. It was almost like the Luke Rockhold versus Michael Bisping situation. Sadly enough, because Robbie Lawler should have definitely known better. I mean, he is the most suspectable, fighter to actually losing his belts out of all the champions because he loves to brawl. And there's always going to be one opponent that if you brawl with and everything, you're going to lose.
No, you're absolutely right. I will say this, though. Lawler went in there. He was almost too respectful with Tyron Woodley. That, to me, like the performances were completely the opposite. Luke Rockhold went in there trying to show the world that he was going to beat Michael Bisping no matter what Bisping did. He made the mistake of doing a couple things that he wouldn't do against anybody else, which is keep his chin up and his hands down. And he had absolutely no respect. Lawler, the way I see it, is he respected Woodley way too much. He was like, as much as he respected McDonald, he respected him, but he didn't stop moving. Like I'm convinced. I'm not trying to take away anything from Woodley here. So please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying. Right. That if I honestly believe that if the Lawler that faced Rory McDonald had faced Woodley, he would still be champion right now. I'm not saying he would have knocked out Woodley, but remember how and even like everybody, I mean, from Joe Rogan to a lot of friends of mine, people who watch fights all the time, that was probably Robbie at his best. He was patient. He was decisive when he needed to be. He was brutal. Everything everything you expect from Robbie, but he was also patient. And it wasn't one of these like for example those rounds 2, 3, and the beginning of round 4 against Johnny Hendricks, the second Johnny Hendricks fight, where he kind of like lost his timing and he was like flustered and he wasn't like striking enough. He was just patient. He was waiting. He was reading Rory, and when it was time to go for it, he made it count. He went for his nose. He was smart. He was brutal. He was vicious, but he was also and ruthless. Yes, but he was also patient and he was timing it.
Right.
And that's how he pulled it out in the end because Rory was beating him for 2 to 3 rounds. Against Woodley, it was almost like he had too much respect for his speed, for his for his wrestling or takedowns, and it was that's the way I saw it. Like he was too respectful. Then he made a mistake when Woodley fainted just before the knockout.
Yeah.
Punch. He moved the wrong way. He stayed. He should have just gotten right out of there as soon as but he didn't. So he got caught. But to me, that was like it's similar in the sense that it was the first round. It was a complete upset. I mean, come on, Woodley is okay. Part of what I'm going to say is I am a bit biased.
Okay.
There's one MMA fighter. You know this, Gerald. There's one MMA fighter on earth I have no respect for, and I absolutely despise. It's Michael the cunt Bisping. That's his real name, people. and basically, Michael the cunt Bisping had no right to be in there. Woodley, it was arguable. It was a little controversial because he sat out, but Woodley is an elite blue chip fighter. Michael, Bisping had no right to be in there. It was a joke. There were like 5. We've discussed this, right? Plenty of times. There were like 5 guys. Like even if Jacare couldn't be in there, even if Weidman was obviously injured, I could name you 5 to 10, even 10 people who deserve to be in there more. You could easily make an argument. I mean, you could have put Henderson in there. He would have deserved it more. Henderson deserves to be on Mount Rushmore, the greatest to ever do it. So there you go.
True go.
Honestly, Dan Henderson, I'm actually shocked when they have those, greatest of all time arguments. His name doesn't pop up as much as it should. He should be right up there. I mean, like as far as like multiple belts, concurrent championships, he held the middleweight and welterweight championships in Pride. At the time, Pride were just as good, if not better, just as stacked, if not more stacked than the UFC. And then he also became a light heavyweight champion in freaking Strikeforce. And Strikeforce were no joke.
Right.
So
Look what
there you go.
Doing now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit sidetracked, but yeah.
Oh no, it's totally cool, man. It's totally cool. So I mean, it's just like who do you think will actually be able to keep their belts this year? Like, do you think, like as you were saying, Demetrius Johnson or Joanna and everything are going to keep their belts? Like, do you really think that who's most likely to keep their belts?
Okay, let's see. Dominic Cruz.
Okay.
Dominic Cruz, definitely. Like if I had to bet, I'm not much of a betting man. I feel safest with of the other champions. Yeah, definitely Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz gives me a lot of confidence because of the way he fights, the way he's just so focused. I'm actually I love Cody Garbrandt. I actually hope they give him at least one more fight before he fights for the belt. I am not saying he doesn't deserve it.
Right.
That's fine. I actually would give him anything he wants now. I just don't want I don't want a top level contender getting ruled out or fighting too soon, fighting for the belt too soon. So yeah, that's the only reason. But I mean, if they give him his title shot tomorrow, I would not argue with it.
Yeah, nobody. I don't think anybody would be mad, especially with his last performance. I mean, that was. Come on, that was unexpected. Pretty.
Yeah, and I know, like, okay, fine. His opponent, Thomas Almeida.
Yep.
He did have a padded record, but that doesn't change the fact that Thomas Almeida is a motherfucker. He's a monster. He's an amazing fighter. He's fast. It's just Cody Garbrandt is that good. A lot of people didn't realize that. I've been singing his praises from before he signed for the UFC. I've seen like 3 or 4 of his fights. The guy's a legit boxer. And every time you see him, he gets better. He's just a freak. And I hope that when he's finally ready to fight for the belt, I mean, he's ready to fight for the belt now, but I'd like him to get one more fight. Like, you know, put him in with, Misha Tate's.
Put him in with the top 3.
Yeah, well, Brian Caraway. I'd love to see that fight. I'd love to see Cody Garbrandt versus Brian Caraway.
Right.
Or even Cody. Remember, he was going to fight John Lineker. Let them fight it out. If he can beat Lineker, you know, like already he deserves this title shot. But if he beats Lineker, if he gets past Lineker, then you know he's the guy. He's the guy. Or put him up against John Dodson, because I mean, you know, bantamweight just got really exciting all of a sudden.
Right. I mean, those would make amazing fights and everything. And that was like, I mean, like John Dodson or, as you said, Brian Caraway and everything. Like, those are two of the most recent guys. I mean, even John Lineker. Like, that would be amazing. And that's something that they really, really, really should think about, because it would just be weird to have Brian Caraway. Wasn't he just in, like, right outside the top 10 to jump into a title fight?
Yeah, no, he was, because, you know, he doesn't fight very often. He's got a bit, I mean, basically Tyron Woodley pulled a Brian Caraway, in the sense that Brian Caraway turns down fights all the time. And he finally accepted a fight against, and I honestly believe he did, what's his name? Oh, God, here we go. Chris Weidman's teammate.
Aljamain Sterling.
Buckmaster. Sorry, Aljamain Sterling. There you go. Yeah, I don't think Aljamain lost that fight, honestly. Like, to me, it was a draw, because he completely dominated the first round. It was a 10-7, if anything, or a 10-8, you know, at least. But, you know, if they could score it 10-7, I would have scored it 10-7. He completely dominated him.
He did.
The second round was close. And I think that people were so impressed that it was close that they gave it to Brian Caraway. It was like a moral victory or something. But Brian Caraway did not win the second round. If you want to call it a draw, it's a draw. And Brian Caraway clearly won the third, but I wouldn't give it a 10-8. So it's a draw or a win for Aljamain Sterling. But anyways, well done to him. It was a great performance. Lots of guts. Lots of, you know, he showed a lot of skill. I never thought Brian Caraway would.
You and a lot of
whatever.
Did not expect that. Did not expect
I did not expect that. But I honestly do not believe that Aljamain Sterling lost that fight. But anyways, that was a great performance from Brian Caraway. So he's calling for a title fight. He's calling for, you know, like he wants a big fight. So give him a big fight. Give him John Dodson.
Right.
John Dodson's been calling him out for years. Give him Cody Garbrandt. Match them up, or John Lineker. There's 4 or 5 guys, and let's not forget that there's a very good chance that Frankie Edgar is looking at that bantamweight division, because Frankie Edgar, as much of a monster as he is, he's actually quite small, and his coach is convinced he could make it in bantamweight. So we'll see. I mean, if he wants to stay at featherweight, he could easily. Okay, he lost. That was a big setback against Jose Aldo. Right. He wins 1 or 2 fights, and he's more than capable of going on a run. He could fight for the featherweight title again. But I'd say like there's a very good chance he goes down to bantamweight. So bantamweight is about to get very exciting. And don't count out Aljamain Sterling either, man. Like, you could almost have like did you read that article on Sherdog? They were talking about bringing back tournaments.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that wasn't. As a matter of fact, isn't that what they were thinking about doing, or isn't that what they're doing for the flyweight belt?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's stupid. I'm sorry. I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but they're all champions. The basically the how do you call it, that season of Tough, every single guy that's going to appear is a champion of regional or other minor promotions.
Right.
So that's kind of cool, but Yeah, no, actually, that is pretty cool because at first they were saying, yeah, we're going to have a bunch of flyweights, we're going to throw them in a house. Whoever wins gets a title shot, which was retarded. And Mighty Mouse rightly got angry. He said, he didn't even ask me. It's pathetic. And you're expecting two of the best flyweights on earth. Okay, admitted, between them, they have 3 losses to Mighty Mouse.
Yep.
But two of the best to train other people to beat Mighty Mouse or Demetrius Johnson. That's ridiculous. But like that, at least it's got an air of respectability. They're all champs. I mean, from what I've seen, I looked at the list. 4 or 5 of them are dominant champs. They have like more than 4 or 5 defenses, the defenses of their belts each. Yep. So that's good. I mean, we're talking about the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and I mean, definitely one of the greatest to ever get in the cage. So yeah, good luck with that, gentlemen. But you know what? I take back what I said. It's not that stupid. It's actually pretty good. Yeah, that's a tournament. That's an unofficial tournament, if you will. Yeah, you're right. It's an unofficial tournament for the right to face the champ. So yeah, I love it. That's good. Yeah. Or you know, like some people are saying. What did they list? They listed, okay, flyweights is already taken care of. Bantamweight, you could do that to make things more interesting. You could do it at, you could easily do it at lightweight. Featherweight, yeah, well, you know, with McLeprechaun doing what he's doing his, I don't know what, I'm not exactly sure what he's up to right now, whether he's going to fight or he's going to lose to Nate Diaz again, or he's trying to go into a career in pro wrestling or whatever. Like whatever he does make up his mind, you could easily make it, you could easily have a competition. Like once if Aldo seizes the belt, you can have a tournament there, but I mean that the picture's a lot clearer, especially when Nate. I'm being arrogant here, but when Nate beats that ass, right? He's definitely I'm pretty sure he goes straight back down to featherweight.
Where he has to. Dana White said that he has to go back down to featherweight. Like that was what his next fight is going to be.
Well, Dana said it, so I feel much better now, right? Dana never lies.
Right.
When constant in my life, I mean he's. You know, Dana said it. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, like, what do you think about UFC 202? I mean, like Conor McGregor, his coach is now in this again. His coach coming in and basically instigating everything Conor McGregor is saying and saying that, oh, Conor McGregor loses and everything. It's going to affect my whole reputation as his coach and everything like that. And
yeah, well, I mean, it's yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay, well, this guy is something else. I mean, Kavanaugh is a piece of work, man. Like that's his worry. Well, good luck with that. Well, good luck, McGregor. You're about to get pieced up. If that's what your coach is thinking of. I mean, I've said it on multiple times. I don't like to do that. Absolutely. Like, I'm not a McGregor hater. I know I like to talk shit and laugh and everything. I have nothing against McGregor personally. I think like what he's done is amazing. I am very realistic about like the way I see MMA. Like I know a great when I see it, and I just don't believe like what McGregor's done is great in the sense that he came from nothing and he's now a title holder in one of the hardest divisions to do it. But that doesn't mean I'm blind. That doesn't mean I don't realize, you know, like he had. How can I say this without being disrespectful? Like he had help.
Right.
Like he wouldn't be here today in any shape or form if it wasn't for the UFC. Like any other superstar, the only guy who had as much help in getting to where he was, like as far as holding the belt, was Brock.
Right.
Brock had great matchups. It's not just great matchups because you will eventually. That's the beauty of MMA. It's not boxing where you and I love boxing. Don't get me wrong, but in boxing you can be a champion and fight nothing but tomato cans. You can be champion at any weight and never face anybody. Right? In MMA you can't. But the way, I mean, it was even better than Brock. The Brock, when he won his title, I'm sorry, and again, I'm biased because Randy Couture is one of my favorite fighters of all time, but I know for a fact that night, and it wasn't easy, but when he won his belt, he fought the Ghost. He fought Randy Couture's, the Natural's corpse that night.
Right.
Randy Couture was in no should have never been allowed to go into that cage. He was injured. He had rib injuries. I think he had a fractured rib. One of his knees was completely shot, so he had no traction. He had no way to explode to the takedown or to shut, to stop the takedown. So, whatever. But I'll say this: McGregor was the same. They did an even better job with McGregor. But McGregor, they allowed him to pick his opponent. Like, he got to pick Mendez at UFC 189. They picked Mendez when they found out Mendez was hunting. He'd been hunting for about a month when they picked him, and he had 2 weeks to get ready.
Yep.
For the fight. So that means with all the media you're going to do, because that was one of the biggest cards of the year, you're not going to have time to train. You're not going to have time to build up your cardio. And
did you love Mendez's "I'm always ready, I stay ready" whole speech?
Yeah. Well, some guys do that, some guys don't. But I mean, there's staying ready, staying fit, and then there's being ready for a title fight, for a 5-round title fight against a freakishly big featherweight. Because don't ever forget, McGregor is a freakishly big featherweight. Aldo was probably as big as you got. Then you had a freakishly tall featherweight in Dustin Poirier, who should have never been there in the first place.
Right. I mean, even McGregor, he looks like a zombie to get down to featherweight, and I'm just like, you're like a big zombie in the featherweight.
Yeah, or I mean, honestly, when he fought Aldo at UFC 94, he honestly, 194, he looked like a crackhead. I'm sorry, but he looked horrible. He looked at 189, 194. It's just he looked like a zombie or a zombie crackhead. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is, you were asking about his coach. His coach, to me, is a scumbag because he cares more about his own profile. That's the feeling I get. And the thing about McGregor, McGregor's a true believer. He's not chatting shit. He's not talking shit. Okay, fine. He promotes. He does, all that nonsense, all that, his whatever. But when he talks about facing Robbie Lawler and knocking him out, or being or hitting harder than Robbie Lawler, or taking on Luke Rockhold, he's serious. He really believes he can do it, and that's scary. But what's really scary is a coach. He's not just supposed to prepare you mentally, physically, and give you the best tactics possible. He's also supposed to protect you from yourself. He's also supposed to give you realism. And I mean, most fighters in general aren't exactly realistic, about their abilities or their weak points or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Coaches are supposed to give it, and he is not. He's not even encouraging him. He's talking the exact same nonsense as McGregor. So
it's instigating. I'm just like, you're being a hype man for your and everything, which is bad. But your fighter is doing a good enough job at it. You need to be his coach, and you need to be just supporting him and making sure he has what he has, not being in the media and saying, "Oh, hey, my reputation is going to be on the line." Your reputation should never be on the line and everything like that, unless you just put out a crop of terrible fighters. And as so far as he's seen, he doesn't put out a crop of terrible fighters. So it just seems like it's him wanting to be in the media more than almost Conor McGregor.
Exactly. And I forget who said it. Actually, a lot of people said it. When McGregor had that standoff, that game of chicken with Zuka boys.
Yeah.
Before UFC 200, in the lead up to UFC 200, he didn't want to do the media and everything. Well, first of all, I mean, Dana was full of shit, and he said, "Oh, yeah, you have to do the media and blah blah blah." That's nonsense. Because it was almost 3 months before UFC 200, they didn't need to do that. They were just looking for an excuse to put it back in its place because, you know, like they do with everybody else. They've always done it. They've done it with BJ Penn. They did it with Randy Couture. They did it with pretty much everybody except for Brock. They needed to because he was talking too much. He was talking about like co-promotion and all that nonsense, and, you know, blah blah blah. So they needed to put him back in his place, and they found the perfect opportunity. But when you play a game of chicken, or when you're staring someone down, you don't blink first. Like McGregor didn't just blink first. His coach blinked for him. His coach basically lampooned anything. He fucking that was completely over the top. But the fact is, it still might have worked. He basically, before the UFC said anything, he said, "I'm retired," right?
Right.
Yeah. So you say that in the day of social media, all the fans were upset. All his fans were upset. Even some people who aren't McGregor fans were saying that sounds really petty of the UFC to pull him just because he won't do one fucking press conference 3 months before the event, right? But then what does his coach do? His coach lampoons him by saying, "Oh, fans, get involved. Don't you want to see McGregor at UFC 200?" Well, what the hell is that? Your fighter just said he's retired. So basically, like what that did there to me and to a lot of people, that was like, okay, that's just nonsense. You guys are just trying to either get more money. You guys are playing with us, and people don't like getting played. But it also showed that they weren't serious, that they didn't know what they were doing. And his own coach should have just kept quiet. Should have just done whatever a coach is supposed to do. But this guy is like, I don't know, maybe he wants to have a reality TV show about him or whatever, but he's obviously, his priorities are completely fucked. And having a coach whose priorities are to be as famous as his fighter, that's never a good thing. It's like, when you have, that famous old saying, if your financial manager or your business manager is better dressed than you, then you're in trouble.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a good sign. Well, that's the way I see McGregor's coach. Basically, he's out to be a celebrity himself, and he's not. I mean, first of all, he's not that good. Like, there's a lot of problems with the way he trains his fighters. Like, look at McGregor. Look at McGregor's ground game. McGregor has an inability to realize what's going on. And I mean, the fact. Did you hear the latest the conference call for UFC 202?
No. I didn't hear that yet.
Yeah, I strongly recommend you listen to it because that's where all the brouhaha is coming from. Okay, the whole WWE thing is not that important. It's fun because we're getting all that crazy, entertaining answers responses from the WWE crowd. But I'm not using that. I wanted to hear what he had to say, and it's excuses. And each of them is more useless than the last, but the most important thing is he hasn't learned anything. It's just like he honestly believes he was beating the crap out of Nate. He really does believe that.
And then he was winning up to the point that he lost.
Yeah, that he was winning. No, it doesn't matter. First of all, it doesn't matter what you were doing, but he never had Nate hurt. Like that's shocking to me, is that you can't, and that your coach hasn't recognized. But everybody gives Tarverdian a lot of shit, like tons of hate, tons of shit. But okay, fine. His advice to Ronda the night she lost was not good, but that's only part of it. That's what a lot of people don't realize. That was just part of it. And you don't know. Like, he knows his fighter. I'm not saying that he knew what was going on. I think he did. But let's say he didn't. It wasn't any. John Kavanagh's advice the night Nate choked out Connor was even worse.
Right.
He was like, oh, great. Let's use this. Let's use that. What? Your fighter's right in front of you, and he's gassed. You can see it. He's gassed. Like, he's breathing heavy.
And
he was breathing heavy by the middle of the first round. He had no idea that Nate was going to go all night. Nate could have fought 10 rounds that night. And that's the most out of shape Nate I've ever seen. And Nate could have done this all night. That's what anybody who knows anything about MMA knows this. The Diaz brothers are pretty much impossible to knock out.
Right.
The closest you'll ever get, the closest I've ever seen, and that was the head kick from hell from Josh Thompson. That was a TKO. Nate was still very much with us. But I mean, the damage, the ref decided to call it. I don't think it was too early, but you could make the argument that it was because the Diaz brothers were pretty much it. But there was nothing McGregor did that night that hurts. That hurts. That even came close to hurting Nate. So that's the thing
I mean, so it's like basically we're gonna say that this is like the rematch is going in favor of Nate Diaz. I mean, in terms of how everything looks, but before that, well, what do you think about the Hendo versus Bisping? I mean, like, let's take these last 5-10 minutes and everything, and like, let's seriously talk about Hendo versus Bisping too. Like, really, like, this is a fun fight. Is this fight really necessary though? Like, that's what a lot of fans are thinking. They're like, yeah, this is a fun fight. Yeah, this is going to be great that Hendo gets a retirement fight that he might actually win. But it's just a question that I really had to ask you. Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, well, again, disclaimer, I'm a Hendo fan. I'm a Hendo fan, a Hendo mark, a Hendo whatever.
Okay.
Till I die. I love the dude. And to me, on Hendo's side of things, he's earned it.
Okay.
Pardon me. He's earned it time and time again. I have no problem with Hendo. Like, he's saying that's going to be his last fight. If it is, he deserves it. He's earned it. And you know what? To Luke's credit, he didn't say anything about Hendo. And even Weidman has no problem with it. Okay, Jacare does, and I can't blame him for it. But really, Hendo has earned it. You can't say Hendo doesn't deserve anything. So I will never say that. Okay. However, on Bisping's side of things, shame on him. You're a freaking coward. You're a freaking coward for calling out a 47-year-old man. You're a freaking coward for ignoring every single contender. You're a freaking coward for running from Robert Whittaker. Yeah, twice he ran. Remember, he was supposed to fight UFC 193. Remember that? They were matched up. He called off with some bullshit elbow injury, some bullshit elbow surgery. But he was ready to fight Anderson, right? So obviously, and then after the Anderson fight, he was supposed to fight Whittaker again. Whittaker actually posted the fact that he'd signed the bout agreement. It was Bisping that ran for him. So yeah, it could be anybody. He could have called out anybody, but he called out Hendo. But you know what? Joke's on him because Hendo's going to knock him out. I believe it.
Oh, you think it's going to be another H-bomb win?
Sorry? Yeah,
H-bomb.
H-bomb. Well, hey, yeah, but you know what? He's more than the H-bomb. Look what he did to Showweather.
To
Lombard.
Elbow bomb.
Head kick and step-in elbow. Hey, don't ever forget it. Hendo's H-bomb is so good. He uses it time and time again, but that doesn't mean, he doesn't. I mean, he could wrestle him to death. He could wrestle him all night long if he wanted to win on points. Hendo is he's a great fighter. He can do it all. So, he's going to knock him out. I honestly believe he will, but, it won't just be the H-bomb. It might be the elbow. I mean, look what he did to Showweather. Showweather was pretty much impossible to knock out.
Right.
He could take a shot, so, yeah.
I mean, like, that elbow looked like it could have decapitated him. And how hard it hit him. That's an elbow to remember. So, I mean, it's like everybody's thinking, they're like, oh, Hendo is going to basically H-bomb Michael Bisping again, because even back then when Hendo was on TRT and everything like that, he didn't look like he was a super hulking, TRT monster like TRT Belfort or anything like that. And he's still...
No, absolutely. Remember, he was one of the most open, honest people about TRT. There's nothing wrong with TRT.
Right.
What's wrong with TRT is when people use it to get
out of control.
He took what was necessary. He had a deficiency, And he took exactly how much he needed to. And besides, he was the one who was open about it. He discussed it. Anytime you'd ask him about it, he was open. So every time that piece of shit, bitch thing, talks about how he was a cheat, how dare you? How dare you? Because you have no right to call him a cheat. Bitch Bing is more of a cheat than Hendo will ever be, because Bitch Bing uses the whole TRT era as an excuse for his shit career. Like him calling Hendo a cheat is disgusting. And Hendo never cheated. Hendo had a deficiency after taking bombs when everybody from Vanderlei Silva to both he fought both Nogueira brothers. He fought monsters in Pride. He freaking knocked out Fedor. So after a while, of course, you're gonna have a deficiency. So he took enough to bring his levels back to normal. Because look, if you don't, look what happens. Look at Bigfoot Silva.
Yep.
This is horrible watching him. I don't even watch his fight. I love MMA, but you can do whatever you want. But whenever he fights, I leave the room until it's over.
Right.
Because the guy, I mean, it's horrible to watch, and it's not right what's going on. He should be allowed to take it. We're going to talk about USADA later, I guess. But,
yeah.
Hendo is not a cheat. He's never cheated. He's never tested positive for anything. He's as clean as they come. I'm not one of these guys who's like, got the wool over his eyes. I'm very aware that people, that stuff happens, but Hendo is as clean and as honest as anybody else. So that whole TRT thing can go out the door, because he was always open and honest. He would discuss it with anybody, and he explained exactly, what he was doing, how he was doing it, and he was saying it's all above board, and everybody's aware. Like you could basically ask him anytime, so there's no problem. And besides that, it's like I'm sure have you ever seen a Rampage interview on MMA Hour? Rampage was a teammate of Michael Bisping, and he actually stated that TRT is child's play to compare it to whatever Bitch Bing was up to.
Right.
So, it's always the guys who talk the most about it that are the biggest culprits.
Right.
Besides, like, if anybody should be banned for performance-enhancing drugs, it's Bitch Bing. Because performance-enhancing drug give him an excuse for the shitty career he's had, because every time he'll bring it up. Oh, the only reason I never got anywhere was because everybody I fought was on it. Yeah, well, there you go. So he should be banned for life as far as, I mean, I'm against any kind of ban for life, but in Bitch Bing's case, I'll definitely make an exception. Okay. I actually need to throw the death penalty, to be honest with you. Okay, I need to stop that.
Right, yeah. Oh, but yeah, I mean, like, it was really interesting and everything like that. I mean, it's just so much going on, and it's just kind of just like, we just had to hit those topics today and everything, but it's like, it's coming to the end of the show today and everything, and yet again, this is G here, and Chris?
Yep.
I was wondering if you had any parting statements and everything before we go offline here.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the beginning of this adventure. There couldn't be a better time to start this podcast, and I hope any people who deem us worthy of listening to enjoy. I hope you guys come over and enjoy the ride along with us. It's going to be a lot of fun, and like I said, we'll talk about anything. We're going to get better. I'm going to get better. I'm going to be able to focus. I'll try not to be so biased, but one thing we will always do, we will always give you our honest opinion. We're not going to hide anything. We're always going to be honest, and like we said, we'll always talk about it from the perspective of fighters. So, yeah, and big shout out to our third host, Roberto, who couldn't be with us tonight, but he'll be joining us the next time we air. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, well, That's it for tonight, folks. Just catch us next week, and we will talk to you guys again. Look for us out there.
All right. Good night.
Night.